Hi there, Teacher Harry here. Welcome back to my English lessons where we try to help you to get a better understanding of the English language. Today we're going to focus on vocabulary, and in particular we're going to look at vocabulary around weekend activities, because weekends are the really important part of the week. Monday to Friday, all about working and all about waiting for that weekend to come, Saturday and Sunday. As always, at the end of this particular lesson, I'll give you my contact details, and if you want to contact me, you can do so. Any comments that you have, be happy to hear from you. Okay, so usually when we're talking about the weekend, it might be something that we did at the previous weekend, the last weekend or the previous weekend. Okay, so when we use that, we're typically using simple past, past simple past verbs, because we're either asking somebody a question about the weekend or we're answering a question about the weekend, and we're telling people simply what we did or what we got up to is another way to express it. For example, did you have a nice weekend? Simple past, did you have a nice weekend? How was your weekend? What did you do last weekend? Or what did you get up to last weekend? So they're just simple ways of asking the question about somebody's weekend, the one, usually on a Monday morning over the first coffee that you have, and all of them using simple past formats of the verb. The follow-on questions that might lead to these when you've got your answers. Well, what did you do? Where did you go? Who did you see? Or you might ask somebody's opinion. Did you like it? Did you enjoy it? Is it worth going to? Or how did you like it? How did you enjoy it? So somebody could be talking about a visit to the zoo, a visit to the circus, a new park, a new activity, something that they've tried that you haven't, or something that you might like to try. So you're looking for their opinion as to whether you should or you shouldn't do it. Okay? So previous weekend or last weekend, usually simple past. Now, if we're talking about our weekend plans, what have we got planned for the weekend? These are very typical small talk, chit-chat conversations over the coffee, before the meetings, whenever you might do it, okay? So the very simple way of asking the question is, do you have any plans for the weekend? Or do you have any plans for this weekend? What are you up to this weekend? Okay? And we often use going to in these circumstances, and the reason why we use going to, it's the continuous format, but it's the continuous format looking to something in the future, but looking at something in the immediate future. So what are you going to do this weekend? And the answer might be, we're going to go here, or we're going to go there, or we're going to do some skiing, or we're going to do some hiking, or we're going to play tennis. So it would be replied to, or the response would be in that continuous format of going to also. Okay, so often used going to talk about future plans, particularly for the most immediate weekend. So the one coming in the next few days or 4 days. Okay. If we want to look at expressions that we would use when we're talking about weekend activities or days, then you might use expressions like, I had a night in, meaning I didn't go anywhere, I didn't do anything, I stayed at home. I just had a night in front of the fire, a night in front of the TV, a night in watching Netflix. I chilled out watching that series that you recommended. I had a night in. Or the opposite, we had a great night out on Saturday, or we had a great night out on Friday. You should have been there. It was really, really good fun. Okay, so it means we went out and we had some fun at some party or some restaurant or clubbing, whatever you were doing. Okay, so I had a night in, stayed at home. We had a great night out or a great evening out when we went out and left the home and went somewhere else. Okay, now let's look at some phrasal verbs connected with weekend activities. Okay, I'll give them to you and then I'll give you some examples. So here they are. To clean up, to tidy up, to stay in, to chill out, to wind down, to have someone over, to flick through, to meet up, usually to meet up with, to catch up with someone, and to bump into or to run into. They effectively mean the same. Okay, so phrasal verbs connected with weekends and weekend activities. Now, some of these might be quite mundane or ordinary, but that's sure how weekends go. So the first one, to clean up. So if somebody asks you, what did you do for the weekend? We decided to stay at home and clean up the garden ready for the winter. So we cleaned up all the leaves that have fallen from the trees. You know, there just seems to be more and more for a couple of weeks, and then they're all suddenly disappeared. Or we decided to stay at home and clean up the spare room because our daughter's coming home for a few months, so we need somewhere for her to sleep. So we decided to clean up the spare room. To tidy up. Oh, well, you know what it's like at the beginning of spring. We like to have a spring clean, tidy up all the rooms, get rid of the rubbish that we've accumulated over the previous year. So we got the kids involved. So we had to give them a little bit of an incentive. We told them we'd take them to the park or we'd take them for a pizza afterwards, provided they would tidy up their rooms. So we set to it after breakfast and we worked for a couple of hours. And then by mid-afternoon, we had tidied up most of the rooms. And then, as promised, we went off for a pizza and went off to the cinema. Okay, so to tidy up the room. To stay in, well, this is an activity that lots of people have for weekends. You know, they've had a busy week, the weather's bad, the weather's cold. We just decided to stay in this weekend. We've been traveling a lot over the last few weekends, so we really need just to chill out. So we chilled out and decided to stay in. So we can link those two expressions together. So we chilled out, we sat in front of the TV, we looked at a few movies with the kids. You know, they like these action movies. I don't like them so much, but they can be a little bit of fun. So we chilled out on Saturday, and then we went to the park on Sunday. So we stayed in all day Saturday. The weather was terrible. Anyway, I'm sure it was the same way you were. So we stayed in. We had some little snacks, and then we just chilled out in the evening and we watched those movies. To stay in and to chill out. To wind down. Well, normally we wind down at the end of a week, and so we can't wait for Friday evening to come so we can wind down and get ready for the weekend, because what you don't want is to be feeling under pressure or thinking, I should have done this, I should have done that. It takes up a bit of your thinking time on a Saturday morning. So if you can wind down on the Friday, you go home, kick off the shoes, get into your jeans or your little leisure suit, and you sit around with a glass of wine and you just wind down. You switch off the laptop, you switch off the mobile phone, hopefully, and you spend a little bit of time relaxing to wind down. And usually it takes a few hours, or in some cases a few days, to wind down. So if you're planning a holiday, you always find it takes a couple of days to wind down before you get into the holiday mood. So to wind down means to get yourself ready to forget about all those troubles at the office, to forget about the schoolwork, to forget about the studies. Just enjoy yourself and wind down. To have someone over. Well, to have someone over means to invite somebody to come to your home for either for a meal, dinner perhaps, or in fact even to have a meal and to stay over for a night or the weekend. Yeah. So you know what kids are like. They always like to have someone over. You know, they have their friends this weekend. The next weekend they will go to their friend's house. We like to have their cousins over because they're really around the same age. There's a couple of years between them. So when the cousins come over and they stay, they have a great time. They watch the movies, they play games. There's a lot of shouting and screaming, of course, and there's a load of mess to tidy up afterwards. But, you know, it's a bit of fun and they get to know each other better. And I really think it's a great way to grow up. So to have someone over means to invite formally or informally to have them over for a drink. Oh, we must have you over sometime, yeah? So you meet the new neighbors, you've just moved into the neighborhood, you're parking your car, they come and they introduce themselves to you and they're around the same age and they say, you know what, we'll have you over sometime. Oh yeah, great. So you just say, we'll take a rain check on that, and perhaps the next time you meet them, they may invite you over for a drink to sort of welcome you to the neighborhood. So to have someone over. To flick through, well, you can flick through the TV channels. You're sitting in front of the TV, you're not quite sure what you want to watch, but you know you want to watch something. So you get the remote control and you flick channel 1, channel 2, channel 3. So you flick through the channels until you see something that's interesting. Then you watch it for a few minutes, you get a bit bored, and you flick through again to find it. And then you suddenly land on a movie that you haven't seen for a while or you haven't seen before. So you settle on that to watch it. So you flick through. In the same way, you can take out an old photograph album and you can flick through photographs from years gone by. It's a sort of a trip down memory lane, yeah? Okay, so flick through the pages. Flick means to go through, yeah? Usually to go through reasonably quickly until you land on something that's of interest to you. Or you can flick through the Netflix channel to see what particular episode you want to watch, or is there one particular Netflix movie that you think is really good that people have been talking about, so you eventually find the one that you're looking for. So to flick through. To meet up, well, we usually like to meet up with our friends at various times, or we might just ask the question, would you like to meet up at the weekend? Why don't we meet up with our partners on Saturday? Why don't we all go for a pizza? Why don't we all go to the cinema? Why don't we meet up at the gym? Okay, so to meet up, you can arrange it formally. Let's meet up at 2 o'clock. Yeah, let's meet up over the next couple of weeks. Why don't we meet up over the holidays? So all of those situations where you have the opportunity to meet up with somebody, to come together formally or informally, to celebrate or just to spend a bit of time together to chill out. To catch up with somebody. Well, when we want to catch up with somebody, we mean we want to find out what's going on in their life and say, oh, I'd really like to catch up with you soon. I don't have time now. I'm in a bit of a rush. I promised the missus that I'd get home early this evening. So give me a call and we'll catch up over the weekend, or we'll catch up for lunch. Yeah, if you're not so busy over the next couple of days, why don't we catch up over lunch? That new sandwich bar seems to be quite good. Everybody's talking about it. We could meet there. Yeah, sure, why not? I'll send you a text or I'll WhatsApp you over the next few days. So you can catch up with somebody for a meeting to find out what's going on in their life, or simply if you see somebody walking along the street or you see somebody ahead of you in the park that you recognize and you haven't seen them for a while, you run or walk more quickly to catch up with them. Yeah, okay, so you just do that. You run or you walk quickly and you catch up with them. Okay, so I'll catch up with you next week. I'll catch up with you for the next lesson. I'll catch up with you soon. All ways of expressing that sentiment that you want to meet somebody. And then finally, as I said, we've got these to bump into someone or to run into someone. And the meaning is exactly the same. It usually means that it's not planned, okay? So it's not mean physically you bump into somebody, hopefully not in your car, but if you bump into somebody or run into somebody, it's usually when you weren't expecting to see them. So you might be just doing a bit of Saturday morning shopping. You might be doing some late night shopping in the supermarket and you hear this familiar voice and you look around the corner into the other aisle and there's the guy you haven't seen for a long time. Fancy meeting you here. Fancy running into you here. I didn't expect to bump into you here. What are you doing? Yeah. The same as you. I'm just buying a few last minute things for the party and I'm celebrating one of the kids' birthdays, so I need to get a few treats for all the kids that are coming across to our home. Okay, so to bump into or to run into. So when you go home, you go back to your wife or your husband or your partner and you say, you'll never guess who I bumped into when I was in the supermarket. Or you'll never guess who I ran into in the high street. I haven't seen her for ages. We were in university together and we lost touch, but she must be back home now. So I really must give her a call and catch up with her soon. Yeah, okay, so bump into, run into, when it's something that happens unexpectedly, unplanned. Okay, so they're all phrasal verbs connected with weekend activities. Okay, let me give them to you one more time. To clean up, to tidy up, to stay in, to chill out, to wind down, to have someone over, to flick through, to meet up with, to catch up with someone, and to bump into or to run into. As I said, phrasal verbs connected with weekend and weekend activities. Okay, well, hopefully that's given you some help and some indication as to how you can use those expressions and words and phrases in your English. And if you need any other details, well, please contact me, write to me. And if you want to write to me, well, my contact details are www.englishlessonviaskype.com. As I've said time and time again, delighted to hear from you, delighted to get some hints, that's something that you might like me to include in future lessons. And I would love it if you could continue to subscribe to our channel, and you can listen to my podcasts. And if you check out my webpage, you'll find lots of wonderful lesson plans waiting for you. And if you want lessons on a one-to-one basis, well, we've got lots of teachers, including myself, only too happy to help you, your family, and your friends. As always, thanks for listening. Join me again soon.